If you'll open your Bibles with me and turn to the book of Revelation, we're going to be reading out of Revelation chapter 10, verses 8 through 10. That's Revelation chapter 10, verses 8 through 10. I'll give you a minute to get there. Starting in verse 8, "And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go, and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy stomach sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter." May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and the hearing of his word.
Our sermon today is You Must Prophesy Back Again. Let's have a word of prayer together. Father in heaven, we're thankful for your word, how it speaks to our hearts. We ask for the Holy Spirit to guide and lead us, teach us, as I'm speaking to your children. Lord, help me to speak properly and right. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to be using the New King James today, starting off in chapter 10 of Revelation. So if you have your favorite Bible translation and you want to follow along, that'll be good. Revelation chapter 10. Starting in verse 1, "And I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. He had a little book open where? In his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, claiming the land and the sea as his own." So he has a little book that's open. Well, what little book is being opened at this time, or open at this time? We would say the book of Daniel. Now, why is the little book being opened? Well, let's take a look here at Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. "But you, Daniel, shut up the words." So shut up the words and what? Seal the book until when? The time of the end. So we tie chapter 12, verse 4 with Revelation chapter 10. Now the book is open. So it was shut up, not allowed to speak. And after the book of Daniel was shut up, it was also sealed or locked, closed. So there was no access to it. Closed, shut, and locked. And locked. And it was locked until the time of the end. So what happens in the time of the end when the book of Daniel is unlocked and opened? Many shall run where? To and fro. And my interpretation of this is it's talking about the book of Revelation and Daniel as their companion books. All of a sudden the book of Daniel's opened, book of Revelation, they're comparing them back and forth. And it says, and knowledge many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. So when the book is opened, what happens to knowledge? It increases. So people at the end of time will have a better understanding of Daniel than those before 1844. Correct? That's correct. Actually, the book of Daniel was actually locked and sealed before 1844. So we'll talk about that later. When the probation for the Jews ended in 34 AD, the book of Daniel at that point, in my opinion, was closed and sealed. On that timeline, the 2300-year timeline, I believe in the 2300 days. To me, that is set in stone. Ellen White calls it impeachable timeline. So, Jews' probation closed, 34 AD. 1810 years later, 1844, according to Daniel 8:14, the sanctuary would be cleansed. Probation closed for the Jews there, but probation happens or opens up to the rest of the world here. So it's a great time now of probation for each one of us. Daniel 12:9 also tells us the same as Daniel 12:4 and 5. It says here, and he said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." So let's take a little journey here through the book of Daniel, what it says about concerning the time of the end. Chapter 8, verse 17, and this is after Daniel 8:14. Daniel 8:14, and 2,300 days in the sanctuary shall be cleansed. So this is the context here about the morning and evenings. It says here, so he came near to me where I stood, and when he came I was afraid and fell on my face, but he said to me, "Stand up, son of man, for the vision refers to the what? Time of the end." Was Daniel 8:14 till the time of the end? Yeah, it was. That's the vision, was till the time of the end. Then in verse 26, in the vision of the evening and mornings, that's back to Daniel 8:14, literally evening and mornings, which was told to me, therefore seal up the vision, for it refers to where? Many days in the future. 11, verse 35, in the time of the king of the north, attacking God's people, and some of those who understand shall fall, to refine them, purify them, to make them white until the what? Time of the end. So we see in these chapters, the flow of the book of Daniel is really, it's an end-day book. It's an end-day book. Going to what? The time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. And then chapter 11, verse 40, at the time of the what? And the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. Here's our last one. At that what? Time, Michael shall what? Stand up. So we're seeing the book of Revelation the book of Daniel is pointing us to the time of the end, or the end of time, when Michael stands up, the great prince which stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a what? Time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time, the time of the end, your people shall be delivered, every one who was found written in the book. So to just get a flow of the book of Daniel, when you start getting to chapter 8 and on, it's pushing the prophecies down to be fulfilled at the time of the end. Now back to Revelation chapter 10, the angel comes down, foot on the sea, foot on the land, and he cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now, when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, "Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and do not write them." And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be, and it says in some translations, delay no longer. I believe the King James says there'll be time no more. Well, why is that? Because the angel's showing up at what point of Earth's history? At the time of the end. So God is saying, I'm wrapping this up. It's wrapping up. Get ready. Something's coming. There's no more delay. There's no more time. Get ready. So it was pledging by the creator of the universe, warning us, you're at the very end of time, and something is going to happen. Then in verse 8, then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, "Go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on this sea and on the earth." So I went to the angel and said to him, "Give me the little book." He said to me, "Take and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth." So when he begins with the book, it sounds like everything's going pretty well, nice and sweet, but then once he had to digest it, had the indigestion. It made his belly bitter. So I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I did eat it, my stomach became bitter. And we tie this with the great disappointment of the Millerite movement in the 1840s, that they had a message that didn't come true, that they had the timing wrong. They had an event right, but the timing was wrong. They thought Jesus was coming in 1844. They didn't realize, based on Daniel 8:14, that that was the beginning of the judgment. And we tie that to Revelation 14, right? Fear God, give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come. So it was the beginning of a judgment, but they thought it was the second coming. So they had to figure that. They did on that one. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. You must prophesy again. Now it says you must. What's must? When you must do something. You have to do. It's an imperative. There's no options. Jesus, he said, I must go to Jerusalem. Well, he understood he had to go because something was waiting that he had to fulfill on the cross. So it's an imperative, a moral imperative. There's no option. And it also says here, one second here as I take a look at my notes. Okay, there's a second one here. You must prophesy again about many peoples. Thank you. Give me a minute there. About. Some translations say before. Before many people. So I actually took a look in the Greek, and about is the correct translation. So you have to prophesy about a people. So is there a difference about prophesying about a people or prophesying before or to a people? So you have if it's going to be before people, I mean, you have a message to tell them, but if you're prophesying about a people, they are the message. You're telling the world about this group. There is a group that you need to let the world know. So prophesy again. That word again in the Greek, and I'll show you here my next slide. So you must prophesy. In the Greek, it's back again. Now, we have school teachers here. I won't point any out. But when your children are doing an equation and you correct the paper and it's wrong, and you have a rule, everything has to be turned in right, you give it back and you say you have to calculate it again, right? You got to calculate it again. You got to go through the formula again and get it right. So that's what John is saying. You have to go back. You don't work your formula from the back to the front. You got to start at the front and work it and find out where you inverted numbers, maybe you added wrong or whatever. So they had to go back. Something earlier in the book of Revelation is going to unlock the error that they had. They missed something earlier in the book that skewed their understanding of end-day events. And it makes a difference. We have, Rusty, you like boats? You ever use a compass out there or anything? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But say somebody's out on a boat and they're calculating where they need to go, but they're 1 degree off. What happens if they're 1 degree off the whole trip? They're going to miss by quite a bit. And if you have those satellite dishes and you don't get it just right, it doesn't work very well. So something happened where they lost their way or didn't understand earlier in the book of Revelation that led them to the mistake they made. If they would have understood that, they probably would have been okay. So that word palin, where it says you must prophesy again, on the bottom here, it's actually back again, as simply implying to return back to a former place, state, or act. So they were told you need to go back to a former place and fix it. And also where it says about in the King James, it's actually, before in the King James, it's about, concerning, or discourse on, giving a discourse on. So you need to find that group. So, and he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and what? Kings. It's interesting. God gave them their first mistake right there. You got to go back and you need to find this group earlier in the book that will get you back on course with your prophetic interpretation. So let's go to Revelation chapter 5. And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look on it. So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah." So an elder is talking to him. There's the Lamb. There's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The root of David has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent out into all the earth. Then he came, and he took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. Now, when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures, remember that's coming up later in this scene, okay? Because this scene right here, the 4 living creatures, the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each having a harp and a golden bowl full of incense, which are the what? The prayers of the saints. Now, how many elders were there? 24. And when they have harps, they have golden bowls of the incense, which are the prayers of the saints. In the very next verse is actually what the prayers of the saints are in those bowls. And it says here, and they sang, or actually it's in the present tense, which would be sing. They sing. New Revised Standard Amplified Version, others have sing. So they sing a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood out of" what? "Every tribe, tongue, people, and nation, and you have made us" what? "Kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth." This group here in chapter 5 are the people John was to prophesy about. This group in chapter 5 is the same group in chapter 11. From every kindred, nation, tongue, and people. Right? Kings. They both had kings. Has the gospel gone to every kindred, nation, tongue, and people yet? No, it hasn't. Now we need to be intellectually honest, and this group hasn't even been made up yet, because the gospel hasn't gone to every kindred, nation, tongue, and people. And it says here, as we go back, and they sing a what? A new song. So we have a new song, people from every kindred, nation, tongue, and people, and they're kings. They're kings. Back in chapter 10, the last verse, verse 11, people from kindred, nation, tongue, and people, and what? Kings. And kings. Let's continue reading here. So it says here, "You have redeemed us by your blood out of every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. You have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the" what? "Earth." Now, this group shows up again in the book of Revelation. So we have them in chapter 10, we have them in chapter 5, and now we're going to have them again in chapter 14. says here, then I looked, and behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144 what? Thousand. Now, is this group been made up yet? No, it hasn't. It might be being made up now. We don't know. But that's still a what? It's still a future group. Still a future group. Having his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the voice of many waters and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpers playing their harps. They sang, as it were, what type of song? A new song. Oh, chapter 5. Every kindred, nation, tongue, people singing a what? New song. So I'm going to make the case right here. The group that John was told to prophesy again about was the group of Revelation chapter 5. And they show up again here in Revelation chapter 14. So those three prophecies are pointing to the same group. So they sing or sang, and it's in present tense. Now, why I'm saying present tense? Because the action is happening in the time of the vision. So when John, back in chapter 5, when Jesus got the book, and then the singing of the saints, they're singing, it's in the time when Jesus got the book. Here, they're singing the time of the 144,000. Both groups are singing a new song. And it says here that they were singing before the four living what? Creatures and the elders. That's the same group back in chapter 5. Elders, creatures, new song, every kindred, nation, tongue, and people. And no one could learn that song except 144,000 who are redeemed from the what? Earth. So who's the only group that can sing the new song? Chapter 5, they're singing what type of song? New song. Chapter 14, a new song. There's too many links between these chapters. John was told, you got to go back and get this group right. You have to get them right. And this is a simple, basic cross-referencing. So who is the group singing the new song? It's called the remnant of Revelation. The group of chapter 5, chapter 11, and chapter 14, they're Seventh-day Adventists. That's us. That's us. We're the group singing the new song. We're the group from every kindred, nation, tongue, and people. We're the group redeemed from the earth. That's us. That's who we are. God has that in there to encourage us to be his people. It's the remnant. It's the group that the devil is making war against. Let me keep reading here about the 144,000. These are the ones who are not defiled with woman, for they are virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being first fruits of God, and to the what? Lamb. And in their mouth was found no what? Guile or deceit, yes. For they are without fault before the throne of God. God is telling us we, as his people, will come to the point where he will redeem and purify us. We will be without fault before his throne. These are Seventh-day Adventist verses, starting at chapter 5. They show up in chapter 5. That's going to be important here because so far I'm using chapter 14, chapter 11, and chapter 5 as witnesses of the timing of chapter 5. But how many witnesses does it take to settle a matter in the Commonwealth of Israel? 2 or 3. So I need a second witness. Well, I have a second witness. I can tell you This is a reliable witness. Right here, Testimonies, chapter 9, page 267, first paragraph, Ellen White. The 5th chapter of Revelation needs to be closely studied. What chapter? Why is that? It is of great importance to those who will act a part in the work of God for what? These last days. So chapter 5 is actually starting the last days. That's the people. That's why they're singing a new song. They're the 144,000. So let's go on here. Some who are deceived, they do not realize what is coming on the what? Earth. So she's actually here putting chapter 5 at the very end of time. These last days, and there are some deceived. They do not realize what is coming on the earth. If we don't understand chapter 5 on, we are in big trouble. We are in big trouble. So what does she mean by what is coming on the earth? Well, the time of trouble. Okay? So we end chapter 5 with that group. So the next chapter has to be chapter 6. There has to be a tie between chapter 5 and chapter 6, right? It says here, chapter 6, starting in verse okay, was I reading off earlier? Was I matching the screen? Okay, I'm not matching now. I'm sorry. Okay, Revelation 6:1 says, Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, Come and see. Now I'm back on. And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to what? Conquer. I'm going to make the case after we look at the next seals that we would call this the loud cry or the latter rain. If the 144,000 are in chapter 5, then there has to be right after that a what? A loud cry. There has to be the latter rain, right? To go out and finish the work. So chapter 5 had the group singing the new song. So what's coming on the earth, Ellen White said? We don't know what's coming on the earth. It's these next 3 horsemen we need to be worried about. These 3 horsemen are significant enemies of Seventh-day Adventists. The next 3. This one, that's us going out, but it shows us Satan's plan to stop us. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, Come and see. And then it says, Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to him, it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a what? A great sword. A great sword. Now, this is the first horse, right here, the red horse. I would say, because of the principle of repeat and expand in Bible prophecy, these prophecies are repeating, but they're expanding, that this red horse right here would be the beast out of the seas, right here. Killing with a what? What type of sword? So what damage can you do with a small sword or a great sword? This is a significant death and dying here. Revelation 6:5 says here, when he opened the third seal, I heard a third living creature saying, Come and see. And here we pick up the slide. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice from the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, A quart of honey for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. This would be the beast out of the earth, also identified as a false prophet, enforcing the mark of the beast. but he's limited because he can't hurt what? Oil or the wine. The oil or the wine. Beast out of the seas, the red horse. Here, this horse is the beast out of the earth. And here's the worst one yet. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the four living creatures saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was what? Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to him over a fourth of the earth to kill with what? Sword, with hunger, with death, and the beasts of the earth. This would be the beast out of the bottomless pit, or the dragon. So Revelation chapter 13, verse 10, that's the verse in between the beast out of the waters and the beast out of the earth. And it says here, he who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the what? Must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and faith of the saints. So where did we just read killing with swords? First and third horse. Killing with swords. So that's what it's talking about, that who kills by the sword must be killed with the sword. And what sword are they killed with? What's Jesus come out of Jesus' mouth at the second coming? A sword. A sword. So Jesus is going to destroy those powers. Then at the end of the then in the seventh trumpet, sixth trumpet, Revelation 16:13, and I saw three unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the what? Dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the what? False prophet. So what we're seeing is part of the seals, Revelation chapter 13, then we get 16, 17, and 18 are all the story about the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet, and what they're doing to destroy us. So that's what we see happening here at the end of the sixth trumpet. And these are what? For they are spirits of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. So, as we take a look here, see the repeating of the great war. The last three horsemen of chapter 6. I didn't go through chapter 13, but chapter 13 with the mark of the beast. And then here in chapter 16, 17, and 18, the same powers are coming to bear. Now let's take a look at the seals. Back to the fifth seal. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you what? Judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth." Well, okay, this is the fifth seal. And they're saying they were bloodied. Well, how were they bloodied? By the three previous horsemen. Second, third, and horsemen. That's how these people died. And they're saying, until you judge and avenge our blood, because it's in the time of judgment. They know that it's the time of judgment and that God needs to avenge them for the injustices done them. And then it says, this group, then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a what? Little while longer. So has white robes been given out yet? Has probation closed? This is actually was given to them in the present tense, meaning they get the white robe under the sixth seal, which only makes sense. First seal, latter rain. Second seal, a horse. Third seal, black horse. Fourth seal, pale horse, destroying on this earth. But we get to the fifth seal, and we see probation close. They're given white robes during that seal, in the present tense. During the fifth seal, they're given white robes. So it's all fitting together. Back in chapter 10, you must prophesy about a group of people. Well, that group he's prophesying about is his last day remnant people. I don't even think we know who we are. I think we've missed it. Bible prophecy is being fulfilled in this church today. We're reclaiming our heritage. God is looking for a church that he can trust, that will grab onto these things and be a launching pad for great things for God. He's giving this as a gift. He's helping us. I need your help. So bear with me as I'm sharing these things. I know it's new and different, but it's biblical. It's simple cross references within the book of Revelation. That's all it is. I'm not using fantastical charts. It's just simply letting the Bible talk. And if someone disagrees with me, then we can have a Bible study after. I'll come to your home on the phone and say, Pastor, I think you should have used this verse in a different way, or maybe this verse, and just share with me. I'm not a brawler. I try to be mild. So just say, hey, Pastor, I want to talk to you, and we'll talk. But it says here they must rest for a what? Little while, longer means little while, not 400 or 500 years. And it has to be a little while because they're just given white robes, right? So you can't have a long age after a white robe given. So we need to be honest and just step back and let the Bible talk to us and speak to us and take it for what it says and put it together. Let's be as diligent in studying the book of Revelation and cross-referencing and let it talk to us as we are with all our other doctrines. Second coming, 2030 text. State of the dead, 2030 text. Sabbath, 2030 text. Millennium. All our great doctrines, we have them laid out. We need to use the same principle of interpretation in Bible study for the book of Revelation and tie the book of Revelation together. If it says new song, go through. Oh, kindred, nation, tongue, and people. Oh, kings. Oh, bing, got it. Got it. Next verse says, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were killed as they were was completed. So if Ellen White in 9 Testimony says Revelation 5 is for the last days, then what does she do with Revelation chapter 6? Is that a fair question? If they're tied together? You just can't throw something in there and not finish the story, right? So what does she do? Manuscript 15, manuscript release 15, page 219, they were caught in a tempest with a hailstorm that beat on them, and she's writing later an account. This was the sharpest experience I'd ever had in a carriage in a storm. When the blackness deepened with the clouds in the south, I suppose there'd be no ordinary storm that we should have. And I thought of the day when the judgment of God would be poured out upon the world, when blackness and horrible darkness would clothe the heavens as sackcloth of hair. We have no question but our prayers were answered, and the angel of God stood by the horses' heads. Nothing was broken. The Lord preserved us, and his name shall be glorified. But I was what? Okay. The Lord used this to give her an aha moment. Aha. Aha. You ever have one of those aha moments? Like, boing, the big light bulb goes off. Oh, now I see. I got it. Well, what was she impressed about? My imagination anticipated what it must be in that period when the Lord's mighty voice shall give commission to his angels. Go your ways and pour out the vials of wrath upon the what? So what is that called? The pouring out of the vials. Seven last plagues. So where's she going? She's going to the last moments of Earth's history. Right? That's where she's going, because that's the only place you can go if you take the book of Revelation consistently with the symbols within it. Well, let's finish off here. Thy right hand, O God, shall dash in pieces thine enemies. Revelation 6 and 7 are full of what? Meaning. So she's actually quoting the sixth seal when God comes. And then she says Revelation 6 and 7 are full of meaning. Well, we just went through Revelation chapter 6, a white horse, right? Pale, right? Red. So we see that already. So Revelation 6 are full of meaning. Terrible are the judgments of God revealed. The seven angels stood before God to receive their commission. To them were given what? 7 trumpets. So now she's adding in not only chapter 5, now she's adding in the seals, now she's adding in the trumpets, and she added in the plagues. This is radical stuff. Radical stuff. She's combining them all together. The Lord was going forth to punish the inhabitants of the earth, their iniquity, and the earth was to disclose her blood and no more cover her slain. Give the description in chapter 6. So they didn't write it out in the manuscript, but what is the description in Revelation chapter 6? This is what she's talking about at that time when the Lord is coming to plague the earth. I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. And the sky receded as a scroll when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of its what? Out of its place. This only makes sense because in the fifth seal they got their white robes, right? That means probation's closed, and what happens when probation's closed? The plagues fall. And after the plagues fall, what happens? Jesus comes. It's just a natural progression. It's very simple. Just let it flow. Let it speak. Let's take it for what it says. Every mountain and island were moved out of their places, going back to the plagues. And I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, and the stars from heaven fell to the earth, and the fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken with a mighty wind. And the sky receded, the scroll was rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of its place, and the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the what? Wrath of the Lamb. So, chapter 6, 5 and 6, chapter 13, 16, 17, 18, and now 19, plagues, seals, trumpets are all there together. And it says here, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to what? Stand. And what do we see in chapter 7, verse 1? We see the angels holding back the winds of strife until God's people are what? Sealed in their foreheads, the 144,000. Who's able to stand? Seventh-day Adventists. But we need to know who we are. We need to know where we stand in Bible prophecy. We know the times within the prophecies. The book of Revelation was written for us in the last days. Us. We are the ones that John was to prophesy about or concerning or give me a discourse on, is revealing God's true church, the woman. That's us. You have a part to be there. You have a part to be, you can be a part of the 144,000. You could be the remnant standing on Mount Zion with the Father's name in your forehead. Imagine. Think of the possibilities that he has for his people. This is for the final generation. So far, We have looked at him prophesying again, and that knowledge would be increased. So those are being fulfilled. And there's a third prophecy, which is the little horn did something that we're, as a church, we're to fix. It's our responsibility. Angel of Revelation 10 says you need to fix the mistakes. Not necessarily the ones you've made, but others have made. And he, the little horn, shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High. He shall intend to change what? Times and laws. So what we're seeing is the times. He just didn't change the Sabbath and the second commandment and clean unclean foods. The little horn also was able to mess up the prophetic times. When Jesus came the first time, they thought he was coming as a what? As a king. Were those prophecies for when Jesus was born? Those are still future, right? So what did the devil do? He brought them back in the past. And he's done that with Daniel and Revelation. Prophecies that belong in the future. He has tricked us just like he's tricked everybody else. Prophecies that belong in the future, he's had us bring him in the past. Think about it. Think about it. So what did Ellen White do? She fixed Revelation chapter 5, the 7 seals, chapter 6, chapter 7, the 7 trumpets, chapter 8, 9, and 11. She's fixed 6 chapters before she died. Think about it. She fulfilled Bible prophecy. She fulfilled Bible prophecy. So those 2 prophecies of chapter 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 shows me that Ellen White is a true prophet. She fixed it. She fulfilled the prophecies and went back again. Her knowledge of the prophecies increased as she aged, and she fixed the errors of the timing of those prophecies in the book of Revelation. Now, Ellen White fixed him, but Josiah Litch, what's he famous for? That's a picture of Josiah Litch. He made a famous prophecy too. Yeah, August 11th, 1840, which is a highly controversial thing even in our church, because no record has been found that anything happened on August 11th, 1840. You can search. If you can find it, bring it next week. I've offered people $100 and no one's ever come back. Matter of fact, don't speak much to me about it anymore. They don't even bring it up. Later in his life, he realized he was wrong. He realized he was wrong. And this is from the SDA Bible commentary under Josiah Litch. It says, for a time he remained with the branch of the Adventists who did not accept the doctrines of conditional immortality. But in later years, he left all connection with any Adventists. Welcome, he must be a historian who studied Litch. Welcome says that Litch became a futurist, accepting nearly all the prophecies of Revelation after chapter 5 to be fulfilled where? In the future, immediately preceding the what? So he fixed it too. Now we had errors in other places. Now how God's going to judge him, I don't know. But there's a book he wrote refuting the fall of the Ottoman Empire. He put the trumpets right where Ellen White did. He put the seals right where Ellen White did. You know what? I think that's pretty good. Ellen White and Josiah Litch fixed the Millerite errors, and it's time for us to fix them. Jesus isn't coming till we fix the errors. Why? Because it says 144,000 have no guile in their mouth. If we're wrong, that's guile. If we're telling and saying prophecies mean a certain thing and they don't mean that, Jesus has to back off. We need to step up and we need to fix them. If we want the Sunday keepers to fix Sunday in their immortal soul, in eternal torment, in their once saved, always saved, in the secret rapture, then we need to be brave enough and take a look at ourselves and fix our errors. We have nothing to say to the world if we can't fix our own errors. The angel said, You must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. That must is an imperative. You guys got to go back. Go back and fix it. Go back to chapter 5 and fix it. There's no other options. What at stake? Everything's at stake if we don't fix those errors. Everything's at stake. Here's what the Bible says. For I testify to everyone who hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to these things, God will add to him the plagues that are written in the what? Book. Now, I'm saying these things are future. That's adding. If I'm wrong, what am I going to get? I'm going to get the plagues. This is serious stuff. God's not messing around with any of us. These are unconditional prophecies. If you don't get it right, you ain't getting in. And then it says, if anyone takes away from the words of this book, of this prophecy, let me read that again. If anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part from the book of life, from the holy city, and from the things which are written in this what? Book. So if there are things that are future and you're bringing them back into the past, you're what? You're taken away. So we need to dig in and fix it. 6 or 7 generations we've been here. Millions have died. We need to fix it and get it right. He said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and what? Kings. We are the kings. The 144,000 who sing the new song are the kings. God has a throne waiting for you. Next week, we're going to start at Revelation chapter 20 and work our way backwards. It's going to be not quite as intense as this one, as this sermon. But we're going to study every place where God's people show up in the book of Revelation, and every one of them is dated. God has dated every one of them clearly that you can't miss. So 20, verse 4, those that were sitting on thrones, all the way back. We're not going to do the churches. That'll be another study another time. Ellen White fixed them. I'm following her. I'm not following the people before us. I'm following Ellen White. Those early prophecies that we had, maybe they served their time, but their time is done. We need to follow the truth. And if Ellen White put chapter 5 in the future, she put the seals in the future, and the trumpets in the future, I'm throwing my lot in with her. You throw your lot in where you will, and you take the consequences. But if she's a true prophet, and knowledge was to increase in the last days, then her knowledge grew. And she came to a new understanding that was biblical. So that's where I'm going. I'm going with her. And I would encourage you to do the same. Let's have our closing hymn.